from the climate change negotiations in Glasgow. As the negotiations wind to a close, I want to share some important outcomes from COP. 46 countries have committed to transition from coal to clean power. The global finance industry says it has $130 trillion to invest in efforts to tackle climate change. South Africa is decommissioning their coal plants, and Indonesia and Vietnam will phase out coal by 2040. There's also so many calls for coalition to support specific countries to speed up their energy transition. These are big accomplishments, but they are not enough. The United States is one of the biggest greenhouse gas polluters, and we need more people in Congress who understand the science behind climate change and will take bold action. That is why I am running for Congress. I'm running for Congress in my hometown because I know that bold climate action requires us to keep the majority. It requires us to vote out the biggest enemies to climate change and climate action in Congress. My opponent, Ken Calvert, has a 7% scorecard from the League of Conservation Voters, and he has blocked legislation to mitigate the climate disaster and has stopped disaster relief. The issue of climate change is personal. The Inland Empire in Riverside County, where I grew up and am now running for Congress in, is a region that will be badly affected by climate change. Higher than average temperatures, less precipitation, increased wildfire risk, decreased snowpack, less fresh water storage, and prolonged and exacerbated heat waves. This will impact our families, neighborhoods, and businesses. I remember growing up seeing ash fall from the sky, something that we see all the time now, and it being too hot on the blacktop in the summers. Taking action on climate change is imperative, and we need bold, innovative change now. When I was in college in UC Riverside, I worked to convince businesses to transition from natural gas to renewable energy, but it was hard to get companies to see beyond their immediate fiscal year. I became motivated to earn a graduate degree in sustainability, and after graduating, served with a delegation to implement the Paris Agreement, while focusing my energy on starting and supporting businesses dedicated to building a sustainable future. I've been attending the climate negotiations ever since, and I'm looking forward to bringing my technical and policy experience I have from these opportunities to DC when I'm elected. Last month, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a massive report on rising global temperatures and their catastrophic effects, highlighting how urgent and bold climate change action is. Extreme heat waves and droughts in the past have killed thousands of Americans, melted roads, wasted tens of millions of acres of crops, threatened the economic livelihoods of millions of families and farm workers. The coronavirus pandemic has shown us what happens when we don't listen to the experts. We can't afford to make the same mistakes when it comes to climate change. 97% of scientists, NASA, and the Department of Defense all agree that climate change is a threat to our kids' futures, and we are already seeing its impact. By encouraging a transition to clean energy, climate action will not only dramatically reduce the carbon pollution that is disrupting our climate, but also the sulfur and arsenic pollution that causes asthma, heart and lung disease, and even cancer, especially in children. Through my company, we have already invested $2 million in the Inland Empire, but that is not enough to create opportunities for everyday working people in our community. As we recover from the coronavirus crisis, we should focus on rebuilding an economy that works for regular Americans, not CEOs, by making investments that will create high-quality jobs for all kinds of people right now and provide benefits to the country for decades needs to come. Investing in clean energy will create millions of good-paying, middle-class, union jobs starting right now, while protecting our kids' health, spurring innovation and economic growth, and combating climate change in the long term. No living thing is spared from the effects of climate change. While racial and socioeconomic status often determines the severity of impact, communities of color tend to be hurt the most due to systemic factors, including the heat island effect, that can lead to temperatures over 10 degrees hotter in more densely populated urban areas. But everyone pays, even if they ignore it. I'm running for Congress because it is time to sound the alarm on climate change. Make it impossible to ignore and demand bold and shared action before our future goes up in smoke. Please support my campaign by going to ShrinaKurani.com.